Yay. Welcome back once again to the Project Gen X podcast. I am one of your hosts, Alan Smith, along with...
I'm the other guy, Big Dave.
And this episode, we are part 2 of the mystery tape.
The mystery tape.
So we covered about 2 hours of it last episode.
We've now watched the remaining 2 hours.
Remaining 4 hours of it.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It was a 2-hour tape. You got to remember with VHS.
Oh, I didn't realize what time it was.
Yeah, you got to remember with VHS. it's a thing where it was a 2-hour tape, but there were 2 settings on a VCR. One was LP.
There was 3. You had EP, LP,
well,
SLP.
I'm talking about beyond the 2 hour. There were the 2 other. There was LP and SLP. LP was long play, which was 4 hours, which it was one of those things that you got little less quality video, but you could get 4 hours out of it. And then you could go SLP, which was super long play, which we found out you can get 6 hours and 7 minutes. And it's one of those things where the video quality is really crappy. Now, also, this videotape is 30 years old. So 30, I guess, just less than 30 years old. So it's one of those things. We found some interesting stuff on here.
It's actually amazing that it was in as good a shape as what it was.
And played as well as it did. And actually didn't look that bad considering.
No.
I mean, it's didn't have to do a lot of tracking. A lot of those old tapes.
It was tracking.
It was tracking on the bottom, but the thing is we didn't have a lot of lines going across it or any of that kind of stuff. So it was okay.
Yeah, it wasn't bad
for old media. That's 3 decades old.
Yeah.
It held up really well. We found some interesting stuff on here. Of course, immediately we came back into some music video, but then we got performances from the MTV New Year's Eve concert, which we talked about.
92?
91. It was 92,
91, 92, yeah.
It was New Year's Eve 91 is what it was, and it's going into 92. And we had a double shot of Guns N' Roses, which was You Could Be Mine and Don't Cry. It was live. They were in Florida. Was it Sarasota? I think they said it was. They were performing live and that kind of stuff. And then we came back to the studio and got a performance of Give It Away by the Red Hot Chili Peppers,
which was
pretty decent.
It wasn't bad.
It's the Chili Peppers. I mean, it is what it is,
Unfortunately.
So after that, we have more videos. We had the very first one coming up was Ugly Kid Joe's Everything About You,
which was actually released off their EP. It was
As Ugly as They Want to Be was the name of it.
And it was actually not a bad EP.
It wasn't. I think it's 4 or 5 songs. I can't remember.
Yeah, something like that.
It had Everything About You, Madman, their cover of Sweet Leaf, and then I think there was another song on there, and I can't remember the name off the top of my head. And we were talking about like Whitfield Crane and like all the bands he was in after that.
Yeah, Life of Agony.
Yeah, he was.
He evidently did a guest spot with Motorhead.
Yeah, I mean, just a whole. He was in like 5 or 6 bands or something like that. Ugly Kid Joe is an interesting, like right there at the end is like hair metal was dying, but the thing is they were not hair metal.
No,
like they had pointy guitars and that kind of. They were really like the skate.
They were a skate punk. They were
definitely a skater band. Like you could tell, like these dudes, like seriously, they could skate, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They are what they are. They, you can kind of look at them as they were kind of a novelty act, but they kind of weren't. It's
they were a novelty act that actually could play.
Yeah, exactly, and we're really, like kind of breaking the mold of what we had seen, of the hair metal thing. The next video, because I'd been watching Headbangers Ball for all this, because we kept seeing like the little Headbangers Ball emblem and everything. We had Anthrax's Indians,
yes,
which I know Dave was a real big fan of.
I'm still a huge Anthrax fan.
And then followed by Slayer with Raining Blood,
and it was a live video.
It was a live video because it was after they had put out Decade of Decadence, or Decade of
Decadence. That's Motley Crue, man.
Crap. What was the name of that? I should know this because
you own the album, don't you?
Yeah, I do. It's right here.
It was like a live album.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a live. It was after basically their 10-year, as they had Where is it?
And it was,
Decade of Aggression. That's what
Yeah,
it
that's
was.
what
It's
it
Decade of Aggression. That's what it was.
Henneman was still playing with
Well,
them.
yeah,
He was
but
still
this-
alive at that point.
Well, 30 years ago, yeah. I mean, he only died like, 5 or 6 years ago. So, I mean, it's...
But still, I forgot how big that dude
yeah,
was.
yeah. And that was the original, it was Hanneman, and it was Kerry King had hair.
Yes. He had hair and no goatee.
Yeah, and of course you have what's his name?
You had Dave Lombardo still
Dave
back on.
Lombardo was playing, and their bass player and singer.
I'm going to make you reach for it because you've got all the albums.
What is his name?
Come on.
Crap. After all this, and I can't come up with the singer's name.
And if you look at his iTunes, he's got
I know.
every
I've got all the
album.
Slayer stuff, and I cannot remember his name off the top of my head. His last name's was it Iero or something? Phil. Is it Phil?
It's Tom Herrera.
Tom Morello, that's what it is. There it is. It's been a long day, folks.
I enjoyed watching you struggle there a little bit.
Now, the next video on this tape was Mr. Biggs to Be With You, which we talked a lot about while we were watching this video, because it's like, this is the song they are known for.
Yeah.
But the thing is that they have two excellent players in this band.
Yeah.
On bass, they have Billy Sheehan.
Yeah.
And then on guitar, they have Paul Gilbert, who is like a virtuoso on guitar.
Yeah.
But they're known for this sappy little ballad thing.
And if you
and
actually
it's-
go in and listen to the rest of their albums,
it's so much different. I always go back because it wasn't on this album, but their first album, Mr. Big, was just what it's called.
Yeah.
Or was it Make It Big or something? Whatever it was. It was. They had this song called "Addicted to That Rush," which is a pretty good like metal, technical metal type thing. Because the thing is there's this whole like intro that Paul Gilbert is doing where he's doing all these like this guitar tapping, the neck taps and that kind of stuff. And Billy Sheehan is doing the same thing on bass right along with him.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you're like, holy crap, this is amazing.
and you got to remember, this is the band that Billy came into.
Yeah, he'd been with David Lee Roth.
After playing with Steve Vai for David Lee Roth.
He played with a lot of
Yeah.
people prior to that, most notably being, David Lee Roth.
I think
but
he's living here in Nashville at this
he
point.
may, I don't know.
If you're listening, dude, you're welcome to stop
welcome
by.
to come by anytime.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, the next video was a little bit of a throwback. It was Paula Abdul's Cold Hearted. I'm not 100% sure how. I mean, I know why it's on the video, but I was
mean
just
on the tape?
on the videotape. Yeah, I know why it's on there, but I'm just like, I don't know how where I would have seen. I mean, I know where I saw it on MTV, obviously, but I like going from like, we could Joe Anthrax, Slayer, Mr. Big to Paula Abdul was like, okay.
What are you doing?
Yeah, so the next thing we had on there was an interesting, and I remembered this. There was a show that used to come on in the afternoons. I think it was like once a week or something like that. Or maybe it might not even have been like a long-lived show. It might have been something that was like a week-long series that they did that was called Like We Care. And they had different segments. It was kind of like MTV News, but it was more like...
It's like a magazine package
kind of
type
really
deal.
And there were two segments on here that we got. One of them was called "Let's Talk About Sex."
Yeah.
And it literally was teens. They had like a sex therapist or a Dr. Ruth type, whatever she is, and talking to some New York teens about certain things,
And you had a room full of
teenage kids,
yeah. But boys and girls.
About 50-50 split.
And the girls were fairly attractive, and all the guys were completely
silent.
Well, not only were they silent, but they were like the geeky.
Yeah, it was really kind of funny to like look at. 'Cause, like, all the girls were talking, and all the guys were just kind of sitting there like, yeah, okay.
All the guys were sitting there going, okay, which one of these can I?
It was really fun to watch because
How can I ask out one of these?
There was one girl that was on there that was featured fairly prominently that we all knew that girl in high school. she was the one that was always organizing some kind of we're gonna have a rally for this, or we're gonna raise awareness for that or whatever. It's like, we all know that we all know her. So she's the one that comes around while you're at lunch trying to get you to sign something like, no, go away.
Sign this petition. Here, take this flyer.
No, go away.
Yeah.
But that was, again, and it was one of those things, of course, they were also getting into facts about sex, which was funny because we were talking about, because again, height of AIDS.
Yes.
At this point. And so it was one of those things that they were talking about of using condoms and how
sexual education.
Yeah, and talking about how they prevent it helps in preventing HIV. It helps preventing syphilis and chlamydia and gonorrhea. They never said herpes. No. And Dave pointed out, I was like, why didn't they say herpes? I was like, that's because condoms don't stop herpes.
Well, I know that.
Nothing stops herpes, okay?
I know that. You know this. But growing up, that was always one of them that was thrown into the mix.
Well, but, it was also one of those things that by this time in the early 90s, herpes had already had its quote-unquote heyday back in the 70s and the very early 80s. By this point, people were more concerned about AIDS, and it's like, Plus the fact we won't get into all that. There's a lot more education about herpes now of because there's multiple simplexes of herpes, and 90% of the world has some version of it. What was that old joke? What's the difference between love and herpes? Herpes is forever. So,
oh no.
Anyways, enough about that.
Here we go.
The next segment was actually pretty funny. It was about dreams.
And
they had a guy. It was
they had a guy on there that was supposedly a psychic.
It was Ron the psychic.
Yeah.
It was Phil the psychiatrist, and then it was, and they said, and they were talking about how people could interpret dreams, whether it was a psychic or a psychiatrist,
and then they
or
had some
two earth
breathing or
earthbound breathers is what it was.
Earthbound mouth breathers.
Earthbound. No, it wasn't mouth. It was just earthbound breathers.
Well, it should have been mouth breathers,
and it was Flea and Anthony from the Chili Peppers.
Earthbound mouth breather.
And it was funny because the psychiatrist and the quote unquote psychic were had this means blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Of course Flea and Anthony were having fun with it. There was this girl said she had this dream about puppies and them falling into a cavern. There was an earthquake, and then
these rats
came up, and they're like, "Oh, she obviously, she has some anxiety about dogs because rats are much better pets. You can put them in your mouth. You can do all. I'm pretty sure you can cuddle with them. It's like a puppy will bite you in the ankle."
Flea was being typical Flea. I'm pretty sure Anthony Kiedis was stoned out of his head.
Well, there was one kid said he gave something about he had this dream he was with his wife. Yeah. And it was a kid. He was like, I had a wife. I was in the park, and there were all these people with no torsos. And he's like, well, obviously he has was it a small sexual organ, syndrome or something like that. It's just like, wow, to be that kid and have one of the Chili Peppers say that you have a small penis is on national television.
After seeing that segment, I'm sure that kid he hid for the rest of his life. So,
but that's
let me tell you, it was very damaging for me. It just I couldn't live the rest of my life.
Exactly. There you go. Well, it was funny because the rest of it was, that's when we found out what the name was. Because at first I thought it was, because MTV, for those of you who are our age, remember they had a whole series that ran throughout the 90s. It was called Sex in the 90s.
Yes.
And they were half hour long. They were talking to different people, And I thought that's what we were watching at first, but it turned out to be this Like We Care, because then they showed we got the very end of it where they showed, and I remember because MTV had it was an afternoon show that was live. They had a live audience, and they would have bands and different stuff like that. And this was a time when they had some VJs that I can't remember their names. I remember their faces, but I can't really remember their names so much. And
it's a bunch of VJs that you don't remember, and
they were there for a short amount of time.
John Norris.
Yeah, they were they were there for a short amount of time between the DJs the VJs we remember, and not even the first wave of them, but the second wave, which was Adam Curry and Julie Brown and Downtown Julie Brown and and all this kind of stuff. And then when we got into when we started getting Kennedy and Dave Holmes and and Matt Pinfield and all that, it's that small little in between there where there was all these they would come and go real quickly, and so it was I remember their faces, but I don't remember any of their names because they didn't put them they didn't give them little bottom thirds or anything. It was just okay.
The only one that kept showing back up was John Norris.
Yeah, John Norris, because John Norris stuck around forever. So I mean,
you need to go away, Norris.
Yeah, see, I never had a problem with John Norris.
I never liked John Norris.
John Norris was just a Labrador Retriever, it's just like, he's like non-threatening and just kind of, there and dependable and, whatever.
He was basically a talking mannequin because they would dress him in whatever.
Oh, he wore some of the worst clothes ever.
Worst VJ ever.
Yeah, I know. No. Jesse Camp will always be the worst VJ ever. I am sorry.
I'm sorry. I love Jesse
Camp, man.
He was hysterical.
They could not get rid of him fast enough. Remember, that was the whole deal on that, so you want to be a VJ. It was type thing. He won a 1-year contract.
Yeah.
Dave Holmes came in second. Dave Holmes was there for 4.5 years.
Yeah.
Jesse Camp, as soon as his contract was up, they're like, get out of here. Don't come back. We never want to talk about you ever again.
But he was hysterical.
No, he wasn't. He was
random.
A moron is what he was.
That's why it was fun.
Anyways, so the next thing that was on here was something awesome. It was a Wayne's World, because there was Wayne's World, had a movie that was this is when the first Wayne's World movie came out.
Yes.
And so they had this, I think it was a half hour, I think it was an hour long deal where they were hosting videos and that kind of stuff. Well, Wayne and Garth did a song.
Well, they did a video.
Well, this was part of this, was like during this hosting thing. They did a song called Pain Cave that is... We are going to put a link to this because it has to be seen to believe, because it's like one of those things where it's Dana Carvey is playing guitar and singing.
Yeah.
Mike Myers is playing bass and singing a little bit. But it's one of those things where it's like, I really and truly believe they came up with this music like right before they went on air, and then Carvey just kind of started making up things as he went along.
Yeah.
And it comes off that way. It's funny, and it's just like, wow, this is okay. This went on way too long for one thing. So it's okay, here's going to be the really random thing out of all of it. Another world premiere video on CMT.
This was completely out of the blue.
Dave had no clue on this one, and I started laughing immediately because this was for a country group, early 90s country group called Matthews, Wright, and King. Okay, the Wright in this...
It's three names.
It's Matthews, Wright, and King.
The way you said it, it sounds like Matthews, Wright, and King.
Wright and King.
Yeah.
Okay, so... I can't remember what the Matthews guy's name, like his first name was. He was kind of the lead singer of all this. But the thing is I know that the Wright was a guy that I know. Like I'm still, his name's Woody Wright.
Yeah.
And then the other one is Tony King, who I think was a studio guy for a long time. I think he played with the Judds and had some kind of relationship with Winona at one point or something. I don't know the full whatever. Yeah. But they recorded one album. And that was it. Yeah. That was kind of one of those.
Now, no offense to your buddy, but the guy, the one that you can't remember his first name, had a fabulous mullet.
Oh, the mullet was just...
The mullet was just...
It was, I mean, it would rival Bono's, like that mid-'80s Bono mullet that he had.
But the thing about it is, this is early 90s country mullet.
Oh, I know. Yeah, very much. Not quite Billy Ray Cyrus mullet.
No.
But... still pretty spectacular.
You're talking about the nice feathered,
right? Yeah,
stand up hair on the front with that waterfall mullet on the back. Yeah.
The name of the song was "The Power of Love." It was a minor hit, and honestly, the reason that that it's on this video is because I knew Woody, and he had told several of us like when they were going to premiere the video, and so I remember recording it because I know that it's somebody The next song Dave loved. Right Said Fred with I'm Too Sexy. Like I said, we were watching, I was like, this is Eurotrash at its best.
Yeah. That's one way of putting it.
And it's one of those things, like I even told him, I was like, dude, if they had paid us enough money, we would have done that. That's, we would have.
I would have been complaining about it the entire time.
And I would have been counting the dollars.
If the cash had been right, maybe.
So Right Said Fred, that video. I mean, look, dude, it is what it is. It is what it is. That's all you can say about it.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun now. And I know the reason that the video's on there is because I actually kind of liked the song back then because it was so goofy. It was kind of one of those
pure camp.
It is, and it's one of those things like, all right, cool, whatever. But it's the next thing we have on there is actually pretty good though. It is a live performance from the 1992 Grammys. It's Metallica doing Enter Sandman.
Yes.
And I remember watching this live because this was the make good for Jethro Tull winning the best heavy metal album in 1989. And it's funny because it wasn't on here, but in that acceptance speech, as they're going through, Lars is giving this, we got to thank this person, and he's like, and most importantly, we have to thank Jethro Tull for not putting out another album this year.
And you can tell that, Lars was still playing the big giant white Tama double kick drum kit from And Justice for All.
Right.
He held on to that kit for quite a while.
Right, yeah.
And you can actually hear Jason Newsted, his bass playing on the song, which is,
The next thing we have, again, another live performance. And we're going to put links to all this stuff if we can find, or if we have to like pull it off and digitize all this and put it up there. We're going to make sure that you can see all this stuff that you won't, whether you want to see it or not. But it was Ugly Kid Joe on the Dennis Miller Show.
Yes.
People forget Dennis Miller had a short-lived syndicated talk show, like late night talk show,
which I watched.
I remember watching it too. And they performed Everything About You, and they also did Madman.
Yes.
Which is funny because Madman ends abruptly, like literally like abruptly, and it's like I was telling Dave, I was like, that happened because like they were getting ready to go off the air, like they ran out of time, and it was like, okay, that's it, type thing. So
basically.
We also got so then there was a video for Metallica's Nothing Else Matter, which. And then we got the video for Eric Clapton doing Tears in Heaven. It was from the Unplugged. Again, if I never hear that song ever
either
again,
one of those songs, actually.
Yeah. And then we got the video for I Can't Dance by Genesis.
Yes.
Which Phil Collins still had some hair. He was hanging on to a little bit.
Yes.
And we got to talking about this, and I told Dave, I was like, I like more Genesis songs than I like Phil Collins solo stuff.
Yes, I agree with that.
And I like more Mike and the Mechanic stuff than I like Genesis songs.
Yes.
So it's
and I said I actually like more Phil Collins Genesis stuff than I do the Peter Gabriel stuff. Because the Peter Gabriel Genesis stuff is
weird.
Weird.
It's just weird. That's all you can say about it.
Yeah.
And I know that's blasphemy to some people, but it's true. Even he will tell you that. I mean, he has big sunflower costumes and whatever the hell he was doing. So the next thing on here was it was a live performance from MTV 10. When MTV turned 10 in 1991, they had like a hour-long concert, different stuff. This was Aerosmith with Michael Kamen directing a full orchestra.
Yes.
Which Michael Kamen did a lot of, like, he did this, he did he was the one that was his one of the things that I noted today was like where the theater that they were performing in is the same one from the Guns N' Roses video for November Rain.
Yep.
That is also Michael Kamen directing the symphony in that one. And he also did a lot of work. Like, Michael Kamen died like 20 years ago. Like, I remember when he died in like 01 or 02 or something like that. And it was like, oh, wow, but he did a lot of orchestration on a lot of albums that you listen to. So.
And it was Aerosmith doing Dream On.
They did Dream On, yeah.
And this is Steven Tyler getting flown in on a platform with a grand piano.
Yeah, it was pretty over the top. It's what you expect from Aerosmith. It was a decent performance. The next video, there's going to be a lot of music videos on this. We're going to kind of just run through without giving you synopsis of stuff. Yeah. The next one was Van Halen's Pound Cake, which I have not seen this video in a long time. Again, it's the quote-unquote Van Hagar era, and I'm sorry, they were a better band.
Yes, they were. and what's funny is in the video, you can already kind of see the line getting drawn between Sammy and Mike, and the Van Halen brothers.
Because Michael Anthony is like all the way off to the side for most of it, and it's like
and hanging out with Sammy, and the couple of shots where Eddie kind of
gets
pokes his nose over. Sammy and Mike kind of get away from
each other. I know. It's funny to watch now in hindsight and be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
The next video is Slaughter's Up All Night. Yeah. And then we got Bring the Noise.
All right. There's going to be a lot of people that know this, but your trivia question, not for you, for our listeners, is name the band that Slaughter came out of.
Okay.
Go either to Instagram or the Facebook page, and
there you go. Dave will take care of that. So
let us know what band Slaughter came out of.
What half of the band of Slaughter came from, basically. So Bring the Noise this is Anthrax and Public Enemy.
Yes.
It was kind of cool because there was a clip of Scotty Ian talking about how it came to be. You know, like they had known the guys for a while, and they like, hey, we want to put our music behind this song.
He was also, Public Enemy had mentioned him.
Yeah,
in
and they
the
mentioned
song.
Anthrax in the song, because they had been friends for a while and that kind of stuff. So it was like, all right, well, let's do a collaboration, and it's great. I mean, it really is. It's one of the things that, like, I remember when this happened, like it being a big deal. Like, oh, you got rap and you've got metal working together.
Yeah.
This is before what we would see a decade later. It's like,
yeah.
And it all went way sideways.
It could have been very good,
but it didn't.
It went very bad.
Very bad. Thanks, Fred Durst. So the next video we have was the Black Crowes with "She Talks to Angels." This was the second video. I was telling David, their first video for this was a live concert video.
Yeah. This
was the one that was the actual video for it. It's weird and Black Crowesy. Then we had Ozzy Osbourne with "Mama, I'm Coming Home."
I'm going to look up who that drummer was.
Yeah, because
because you should really mention the lineup.
Because we were talking about in this, the No More Tears album when it came out. Of course, you had Ozzy on vocals, you had Zakk Wylde on guitar, you had Mike Inez on bass, who would go on to be in Alice in Chains. And then when they toured, they had Mike. He was in Faith No More. He was the drummer for Faith No More. Hold on. We're doing all this
on the fly
because, Mike Borden was the drummer that toured with them and became like a part of Ozzy's band for a long time.
Yeah.
But you're trying to find out who the drummer is because it's not him in the video. But it's still one of those things where I'm like, it is a solid band. I mean, a solid band.
Randy Castillo.
Oh, is it Randy?
Yeah, it's Randy Castillo.
Okay. Hey, that's a solid. Hey, that's
right.
That's right. Randy did play with Ozzy for a long time.
Yeah, and it's
that's
John
right.
Sinclair on keyboards.
Okay, but yeah, Randy Castillo was again no longer with us. But yeah, he was dude. That's a solid lineup. Him, Mike Inez, and Zakk Wylde. That's pretty awesome. Okay, the next thing that's on here was the Eric Clapton Unplugged. We did not watch this because
nobody really should.
If I ever have to hear any of those songs again, I may have to do something
worst
horrible.
Version of Layla ever.
Oh my goodness, man. I
said it.
MTV Unplugged was one of those things that was pretty.
It was either really good or it was subpar.
In the beginning, it was something that was unique.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Then it became a property, and everybody had to do one. Well, some people didn't need to do one because they're not set up to be acoustic, for acoustic stuff. And then it was one of those things where, like, you have with this, like with Clapton.
Everybody always talks about the LL Cool J Unplugged.
That was pretty good.
It was okay.
It was okay. But, you go back and look at, of course, everybody, the Nirvana Unplugged is the one a lot of people go back to. And it was...
That's a good one.
It was the last time we saw Kurt, in that kind of setting, where it was on television, type stuff before he passed. And then...
The Great White Unplugged was pretty good.
See, I don't care. There was Great White. There was the Poison did one. You had to get a lot of that type of stuff. The Black Crowes did one. You have like the ones though that like we could not get away from no matter what. Obviously the Nirvana one.
Yeah.
The Eric Clapton one. Matter of fact, the Eric Clapton Unplugged, because they put an album out of this thing, and he won like 7 Grammys on this thing. The Grammys changed their rules because of that album.
Yeah. Because
they were like, okay, from now on, in order to be nominated for a Grammy, it has to be new music. Like, it can't just be like re-recordings of your old stuff, type everything. I mean, it literally because it swept everything. And they were like, okay, we're changing the rules now because this is getting ridiculous.
Well,
Rod Stewart
the
did
Grammys
one.
changes the rules at the drop of a hat and like snubs icons when they get a chance. Yeah,
Rod Stewart
did
one that was pretty popular. Alice in Chains did one that was really popular. And then of course,
I liked the Alice in Chains one.
Now, one of them that I really enjoyed that had at least a minimal amount of popularity was the Neil Young. That was after he'd put out Harvest Moon, and so he was doing all that stuff and everything. But yeah, Unplugged, it's kind of one of those things that played itself out, and unfortunately, we saw that Clapton Unplugged around the clock for like 2 years.
They took the entire thing and they cut each song up into its own video, and they basically made music videos.
And that was what they did, especially with Pearl Jam, who decided they were not going to do any more videos after Jeremy. And so MTV was like, "Hey, why don't you come do Unplugged?" And so they were like, "Okay, all those songs that you're not going to do videos for, we're just going to show the Unplugged we're going to cut these into music videos." And that's why that's the black quote unquote music video is them unplugged, and that kind of stuff. So it's just like whatever, Now the thing we did do on this is we fast forwarded through the Clapton and just went to the commercials because we're weird that way. The first commercial we saw was a commercial for U2's Zoo TV coverage, because it's one of those things they were getting ready to go. This was after Octane Baby had come out. They were getting ready. This is in early 1992. That album came out in November, and so it was one of those things they were getting ready to go out on the road. And so MTV had like exclusive like coverage of it, that kind of stuff. So they would have like little MTV news, like interstitials and stuff about it, and like that stuff. Now, the next commercial we saw, Dave and I were both like, "This is one of the hottest things we've seen in a long time." It was a Revlon commercial, okay? They had 3 models in it. It was Cindy Crawford, Claudia Schiffer, and Helena Christensen. Helena Christensen, who is the sexy
model
woman from the Chris Isaac video. Yeah. And it was one of those things, and it's one of those things that they've got Nat King Cole singing "Unforgettable."
Yeah.
And Dave and I are both sitting there going,
and they're all running around in various stages of undress.
And Dave and I are both just like quiet, sitting there. Both.
My first question is, wow, why don't we see anything like this anymore?
Exactly.
My second question is, what is this a commercial for?
Exactly. It was like, wow. Dave was like, that is the hottest Revlon commercial I have ever seen.
Guilty.
But yeah, it's one of those things that's like, oh, that, yeah. Now, what was really interesting, the next commercial was Coca-Cola Classic. And it was featuring new artists.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna do this. There was an artist named Coro that I have no idea who they are. There was another artist, Lizette Melendez.
Yeah.
There was another one that was a group called The Lighter Shade of Brown.
Yep.
But the one that stuck out immediately, because she was actually the first one featured on this, was Selena.
Yeah.
This is in 1992. Okay, this is before any of us knew who she was. Well, before she hit mainstream. Let's put it that. She was really known, especially in the Hispanic community and that kind of stuff, but like she hadn't hit mainstream yet, and it was still a few more years, this was in 92, so it'd be like 3 more years before she
was murdered.
Yeah, well, she put out an album that crossed over, and then she was murdered. Yeah, and so it was like, but it was kind of one of those, we both kind of set up like, oh, what is this, kind of thing.
Oh, it's Selena.
Yeah, exactly. So it was kind of cool to see that. There was what was it, the Javon Musk? I forget what that commercial was. It was something weird. I wrote it down here. Then there was the Clearasil commercial where we're sitting there like, we're at a high school and blah, blah, blah. And we're like, none of these kids are high schoolers.
No, the Elon Musk commercial was where it like basically had looked like somebody that was on the censor boards, like, you can't do this.
Oh, that's
right.
That's right. You can't
the two models were basically undressing.
Right. Everything
other.
It would say, like, you can't take your pants off or whatever. And it shows them both doing it. Yeah, I was like, we have another commercial like that that's coming up as well. Then the Clearasil commercial, like I said, none of those quote unquote kids were in high school.
They were all in their early to mid 20s.
Oh, they're probably all in their at least mid 20s, if not older. It's like, man, they stick out as like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
The next commercial was Dennis Leary. We saw 2 different commercials for Dennis Leary.
They were gearing up and advertising
for Spring Break 92, and both of the commercials was him in Brooklyn on the beach, and it's like
freezing
cold,
his butt off,
and he's sitting there, and he's like, "Where is everybody?" Blah blah blah, kind of stuff. And like the second commercial, he's like, "Yeah, I know, I should have gone to Daytona Beach," type stuff. Yeah. So it's basically them gearing up for the Spring Break 92, which I think the other tape that I have has got a bunch of that stuff on there. I think. I don't know. We'll find out. We saw a Pepsi commercial with Regis Philbin.
Yep.
which was like, oh wow, that's
the gotta have it
campaign. Yeah, we saw a commercial for WrestleMania 8 with Sean Mooney doing the
with the local number of where to call in and get the pay,
and it was $29.99 was how much it cost, and they were talking about they were really hyping that up, and then we saw a commercial for My Cousin Vinny,
which was just coming out,
right? So then we're back to music videos after, and this is all stuff that aired during the Clapton thing. We fast forwarded through all that and just watched the commercials. And of course, we got repeats of the commercials in it. It's so funny that
now it's feeling a little bit like Demolition Man because we went straight for the commercials.
Yeah, exactly. Then we come back, and for some ungodly reason, I had the video for Under the Bridge by the Red Hot Chili Peppers on here.
Yeah, you should be smacked for that.
But then we had Van Halen's Right Now, which is one of my favorite videos of all time. And that song in that video is still pretty good and relevant in a lot of ways. Then we get Spinal Tap.
Yes, we do.
Spinal Tap was hosting Headbangers Ball
because they had actually put out a new album,
and they had the world premiere of their new video for Bitch School, and it's terrible. But it's Spinal Tap terrible. It's because Spinal Tap what it is.
Terrible, and it looks like they have because they were always looking for new drummers. And the way they set it up in the video, it looks like they have Neil Peart playing for them.
I don't know who, because they never show the guy's face.
No, so but it's the big red Tama kit that Neil Peart played early on. He's wearing the little weird hat that Neil would wear. Who
knows? I don't know. We never is like, it is what it is. The next video was Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody. Now, this was the video that has all the Wayne's World footage in it, which I was telling Dave, I remember there were so many of these videos like this for many years. Another one was the Bryan Adams "Everything I Do It For You" with all the Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves stuff in there. If you go on YouTube and try to find those videos, you can't find them. You'll see like the 70s version of this video without any of the Wayne's World stuff, or it's a different video of Bryan Adams performing, like it's kind of a concert video. It's not a live video, but it's and none of the Robin Hood stuff is in there whatsoever. Yeah. I'm sure it's licensing and this and that and everything. The next video, this is one that Dave and I both kind of like, oh yeah, cool. It's George Michael Faith. Yeah. Which obviously by this point is about 6 years old. 5 or 6 years old, something like that. I told Dave, and I very much agree, I will stand by this. George Michael is the rock star that we didn't ask for, but that we deserved.
Okay.
And I mean that. Like, he came out with Wham, and they were kind of goofy, that Wake Me Up Before You Go stuff, and blah, blah, blah. When he came back as a solo artist, and like he had this new, like, cool, sexy thing going on, and it was like, oh, who is this guy? And of course, the first song out was I Want Your Sex. Yeah. But then he released Faith, and he released Father Figure, and, all these other songs that like have become iconic. It's like, wow, these are great songs. But what really cemented it for me is, of course, when he went on and when he did the Listen Without Prejudice album, and he did the Freedom 90,
I love that album.
That's a great album. It's like his stuff throughout the 90s is really different.
And good.
And very good. But it's one of those things that I was telling Dave, the Freddie Mercury tribute concert that happened in I guess it was in May of '92 or something like that. It was at Wembley Stadium, and they had all these people come in, like you had all these big stars that come in to do Queen songs and play with the band, because it was after Freddie had died, and there's some great behind the scenes video on YouTube that I've watched. One of them is David Bowie and Annie Lennox, and they're rehearsing with the band, like in a rehearsal space. They're doing Under Pressure, and it's kind of one of those things, but they're kind of showing around what's going on around. And George Michael is standing off to the side watching them, and he's singing along, you can see, he's kind of stuff. Yeah. And it's one of those things that it's like, he just looks so cool, with his sunglasses and, with his button-up shirt and all this kind of stuff. It's just like, this guy just exuded cool after he got away from Wham.
Okay. Yeah.
And then there's a video of him rehearsing Somebody to Love with Queen, and it's one of those things. I remember like watching that because I've seen the And the thing is like when he performs with them live at Wembley, he's got like I think he's wearing like a red suit or something. You know, it's one of those things where it's all kind of like but in this one again, he's in jeans and a button-up shirt and boots or glasses or whatever, and it's just like this dude is a rock star, like more than we ever thought that he was.
Yeah,
type thing, and it's a shame that he's gone because I think he still had a lot of music left to do.
Well, yeah.
and it was just like. Again, one of those. It almost sounds like you're preaching to the choir whenever you say George Michael was a rock star. But I think he was a highly underrated rock star because he had so much big success, and then it was a diminishing return after that. And people kind of were like, "Oh yeah, I remember when George Michael was cool." It's like, no, George Michael never stopped being cool. And again,
he had his problems.
But he was one of those guys that like he was one of those celebrities that whenever he was finally like he came out, that everybody was like, yeah, okay, finally, all right, sure,
It's just too bad it was a men's bathroom in a park instead of a closet.
The whole situation with him with that. Which he actually parodied in his video for Outside, which is a great song and video. Yeah. But it is one of those things where it's like, like I remember like seeing that, like, hey, George Michael comes out as gay. He's like, yeah, so.
It's kind of like Pee Wee Herman in movie theaters.
Well, it's like when Rosie O'Donnell came out, it was like, yeah, or Lance Bass or any number of people. It's like Clay Aiken or, it's like, yeah. Tell us something that this is news.
Why is this news?
Okay. So the next thing we have on here, now that I've gushed over George Michael for a while.
You're professing your love for George Michael.
I love George. I do love George Michael. I mean, I was telling Dave, because it's the video for Faith, he's like next to that jukebox and he's got like the jeans and, the black,
boots.
The boots was the big thing. Like I remember seeing there was a promo for his tours that he was doing.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing it, and this is when the Faith tour, and it was shot in that mid '80s, whatever, and it was this whole thing of him like he was like walking on stage and it was all like backlit, and he had like the big spotlights and that kind of stuff, and there was a close up of him walking in those cowboy boots, and I remember like at that point being like, I need a pair of cowboy boots. This is. I'll admit, George Michael was like one of those people. Was like, I want to emulate that guy. He's got that thing.
I can see you doing that.
Yeah, that type of stuff. So we all had whoever it was.
Between Bon Jovi and George Michael, and that's where you got your leather and cowboy boots.
No, it was never Bon Jovi.
No, don't tell me that because
I know, but it wasn't Bon Jovi. Wasn't the one that got me the over the edge on the cowboy boots and everything. It was Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, that was, I'll say that right off the bat, Anyway, the next video we have was Weird Al with Smells Like Nirvana. This was a fun, because I haven't heard the song in a long time, and I remember, because Weird Al is like a national treasure. I'm sorry. There is no ifs, ands, or buts with this guy. And, and it's a goofy video, but it's as goofy as the Smells Like Teen Spirit video really is.
Yeah.
I know people are like, oh no, it's just blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's kind of a goofy video.
Yes,
let's be honest, but it's one of those things where it's like, whereas with Nirvana, they're taking it very seriously. Weird Al's taking the piss out of it is basically what it is, because it's like,
and it's almost a shot for shot.
Almost, and even like some of the random stuff that has in it, like the guy just like walks out and he's like on fire, or Al like picking up the basketball and throwing it over his head and it going in there. It's like
the janitor pulling the donut out of the mop bucket.
Yeah, or pulling the
tutu.
Yeah, and then Dick Van Patten being in the audience. Any of that stuff could have been in that Nirvana video, and we'd have been like, "Oh, that's strange," and or whatever.
Yeah.
And then after that, there was this weird. Okay, we're almost to the end of the video here. There was this weird, obviously I had taped over this multiple times. We caught the very end of some video. It might have been like an MTV rockumentary. I think it might have been because they used to do these things called rockumentaries, and it was about guitar players. And they were interviewing like Steve Vai and Joe Satriani and Mark Knopfler, Pete Townsend, you know, and I'm pretty sure they talked to The Edge and a few other people in this, if I recall.
Eddie Van Halen
was in it, kind of stuff. We only caught like the last maybe 5 or 6 minutes of it or something like that. I'm sure we'll be able to find it.
Songwriting,
about playing guitar and how you get to where you are, you know, inspiration and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of interesting, you know. But
Satriani had hair.
Yeah, this is Saturday, and
and a beard.
Yeah.
So,
and the next thing that was on this, though, hold on,
he's trying to decipher his own notes.
Oh, there was it was Ren and Stimpy.
Yes.
This was the last thing that was on here, was like almost a full episode of Ren and Stimpy.
Which I loved.
And I was like, wow, I don't remember this being on here, because I was never a big Ren and Stimpy fan. But it was, you know.
I was.
This was at the time, this was like right before Beavis and Butthead.
Yes.
Like about a year before Beavis and Butthead. This was when they were doing Liquid Television on Sunday nights.
Yes.
They also had some other little weird shows, like cartoons. Like they were running at this. This is when they right before, either right when or right before they started doing reruns of Speed Racer.
Oh, I remember
that. They used to at night, like it was like 8 o'clock or something. They would show like an hour, like two episodes of Speed Racer, you know, and that kind of stuff. And yeah, I was like, all right, this is awesome, you know. But yeah, Ren and Stimpy, we watched a little bit of one of the
I made him watch
segments.
a little bit.
It's like, okay, I remember. Of course, we got to talking about John Kay and all the weirdness and also the disgusting that he is.
Yeah. Once again, having to separate the art from the artist.
It's really tough with that one, though, because dude was going after like really young girls and just, yeah. Again, commercials in this.
Yes.
Okay. There was one for an MTV contest called My Dinner with Michael, which was literally you could have dinner with Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
And it was
on the set of his music
video, which I'm not sure which one it was.
I have no idea.
Because they didn't say which video it was. I want to say this was probably Remember the Time.
Probably.
Somewhere in there. I might be wrong about that. I don't know. Some
of the standout fake people asking Michael questions,
stupid questions.
It was like,
hey, can I get the mayo over here? You know, it's
like, hey, what's Macaulay Culkin really like?
Yeah, I know.
Followed up like, yo, Jackson, that's my pickle.
Yeah, I know. It's like weird, what? Like, huh? What the? Okay. That reminds me, I need to show you something.
Oh no! Oh no!
There was somebody who put a screen cap of Netflix. There was on one of the groups that I'm in on Facebook, and they were like, hey, Netflix, you might want to rethink this. And it was like suggested for you. And the first one, it was Michael Jackson's I think it was Moonwalker or something, or it was something Michael Jackson related.
Yeah.
The next one was what was the name of that? Sausage Party. The animated sausage party, so it's got like this big sausage, you know.
Yeah.
And the next one was Home Alone with Macaulay Culkin had his hands on his
no!
I was like, that's beautiful. That is amazing.
No.
I'll have to find that picture because it's so. I was like, oh man, I laughed so hard at that. Here is a blast from the early 90s past in this next commercial.
Yeah.
Bugle Boy jeans, color denim.
Color denim.
Now, what they did with this one is they're like, hey guys, you know, we know what you like. And so they were showing like women putting these jeans on and taking them off, and you know, and it was like literally it was like, you know, like, oh look, it's a pair of Bugle Boy overalls, like the shorts overalls that were like purple or green or whatever. And I remember these things being really big for a short amount of time, you know. And
not at my house.
Yeah, no, I never owned any of them, but I remember like seeing them, other people wear them, and I've always been a jeans and t-shirt type guy. Like always, that's just always been my thing. I never got into color denim and all that kind of BS. You know, it was like as all those trends were going on, I was wearing jeans and a t-shirt. I still wear jeans and a t-shirt. That's just who I am. You know, the t-shirts change, the jeans are pretty much the same. So.
Jeans, t-shirt, and a flannel shirt for me.
Yeah, same thing. We're both sitting here rocking both of them.
Either that or like a long sleeve t-shirt.
Yeah,
I'll do a long
sleeve
like t-shirt.
The next one was Ogilvy. This was something Dave and I both started laughing at because that is a hair product name I have probably not thought about in 30 years.
Yeah.
This was all like for your perm, like your perms and like
oh, my girlfriend went to the salon and it cost her way too much. And I did it at home. Right. And now that I've got my perm, I'm going to use Ogilvy hot oil.
Exactly. Yay. Yeah. Again, but that as soon as she said Ogilvy, Dave and I both looked at each other like, oh wow, I hadn't thought about this in forever, you know.
and who's still getting perms?
I know. Yeah, you almost never see somebody with well. You almost never see women under a certain age getting perms. Let's put it that way.
Usually, if you see somebody with a perm, you're getting followed up with, "Okay, Karen."
Yeah, pretty much. Okay, so the next commercial, again, Dave and I both were like, "Oh, this is awesome." Cineburst Gum. And this was kind of when when Denting introduced Cineburst Gum. Now, this is a relic of the 90s, and I'll be honest, I used to chew this stuff all the time. I used to keep it on me. This was like if I went into a store and bought gum, it was usually Cineburst.
No, not me.
I know you have a cinnamon allergy. So
well, it started out as a cinnamon sensitivity.
Right.
Like if I chewed that gum, I would have breakouts in my mouth. And now it's a straight up allergy to cinnamon.
But I used to. This was like if somebody said, "Hey, you guys took a gum," I was pulling out Cineburst, you know.
Yeah.
And this is a pretty cool commercial. Again, we're going to link all of this stuff to where you can see it because it is pretty interesting time capsule.
Yeah,
it really is. The very last thing we're going to talk about here, I think. No, we missed something. There was a commercial for MTV Sports.
With Dan Cortez.
Yeah.
Oh, you also didn't mention the Lady Speed Stick commercial.
Yeah, well, you know, that's there was nothing really there was nothing really spectacular about it. But there was a commercial for Nicktoons.
Yes.
And the 3 cartoons that they featured in this commercial were Doug, Ren and Stimpy,
and Rugrats.
I'll be honest, I never watched a lot of Doug.
Doug was fun.
I mean, I would catch it here and there. You know, but it was like, this is obviously a little low, you know. Ren and Stimpy, like I said, I was never a huge fan. I would catch, you know, from time to time or whatever. But Rugrats was one of those shows that I still love. Like, that show was like...
So that show was your jam.
I love Rugrats. You ever watch Rugrats?
Yeah, every once in a while.
Dude, that show was like supposed to be made for kids. There was a lot of adult humor in that. Yeah. A lot of adult humor in that. And I mean, like there's a porn joke in one episode where the kids find a videotape, and it was like I forget. It was like what's they pull out the videotape, and I think one of them reads it as like, you know, what's this video of like, you know, hot college co-eds or something like that, and the grandfather's like, oh yeah, that's a video that grandpa's gonna be watching later tonight or something like that. There was that type of stuff. It was like, oh wow, they really just did that. But also just some of the jokes and stuff was like, this is just way over kids' heads, you know, kind of like, you know, Animaniacs did that, and you know, Tiny Toons, and there was a whole bunch of like cartoons around this era that started doing like.
Do not get me started on the reboot.
Oh, we're not even going to talk. No, Animaniacs is it's unwatchable. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
it is unwatchable, and it's just bad. It is bad on so many levels.
Yeah.
But that original run of Animaniacs
was awesome.
Awesome. It still holds up. But yeah, that's it for our videotape, because this is where we ran out at 6 hours and 7 minutes.
You know what cartoon that I do miss watching every once? Johnny Bravo.
Yeah. I told you that like all that Cartoon Network stuff is on HBO Max.
Yeah, which I have for 6 months because I paid.
Did you watch the Snyder Cut yet?
Not yet.
Yeah,
not yet.
You know, it's like 4 hours.
I know. I'm actually, Renee and I are waiting until we can both get in the room together. Okay. You know, to sit down. And watch
you have fun with that, and
I know you're not going to do it.
As we're recording this, we just seen the first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
We will come back once it's all done and talk about it.
Yeah,
a little bit. We're not going to get into, because kind of like what we did with WandaVision, where we kind of like did an over of all, because it's already in this first episode. It's like, oh, that's this. Oh, that's this. Yeah. Oh, that's this. Okay, here this is all going to be kind of cool again, you know. So they are, you know, I got to hand it to Disney Plus. They're giving something Marvel like almost all year.
Yeah.
You know, because it's one of those things, you know, we had WandaVision,
No, we've got
and then,
Falcon and
but
Winter
the thing is,
Soldier.
there was a weekend between the two.
Yeah.
And they had their making of WandaVision where they had the behind the scenes stuff. Now we're getting Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is going to run for 8 weeks or 2 months or whatever it is. Then we're going to get a making of for that, and then Loki's coming on the air.
I think it's June 11th or June 16th.
So it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, and then I think is the animated one, What If, coming on after that?
I don't know.
I have to look at it.
I don't know,
but
that
it's
I'm
one
interested
of those.
in that.
I am, because I used to read those comics because they're out of continuity. You know, it's just kind of like, hey, what if this happened? Type stuff. And the fact that it's also animated, I'm kind of like, okay, I want to see this. This is, again, going back to my love of comics, reading that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's our first mysterious tape. There are a lot more, and we will do these periodically. We won't just like hound you with a bunch of stuff. We have already started talking about some other stuff that we're going to be covering. Yes, it's probably going to be a lot of early 90s stuff, but we also have one that there are special rules for. Dave's not happy about it. This is how I'm going to keep Dave in line for this episode. So we're not going to say what it is yet.
No, we're not going to say what it is, but you're going to have to give me time with this.
I will. I know you're going to... I know you're going to overthink it because it's not as tough as you think it is. So...
I don't know how much truth to this is. I saw this where somebody posted this on Facebook, so it may be completely.
So obviously, it's true. So.
Yeah, it must be. It must be true. But somebody made the suggestion posted that from now on in the Marvel movies, they're going to have Ryan Reynolds,
Deadpool, do the Stan Lee.
I saw
that. Yeah,
and somebody replied. He goes, in every movie, it should be Deadpool putting up.
Missing posters of Stan Lee. Yeah, I saw that.
I was like, please make this happen.
I would love to see Deadpool come into the MCU proper.
Yes.
As an auxiliary.
I gotta do something.
As an auxiliary character.
Yes.
Like, literally, I would love to see Deadpool literally walk through the middle of a scene and everything as just chaos ensues because something's getting ready to go sideways, and then Deadpool comes in and makes it so much worse than it should have been.
Exactly like the comics.
Exactly. I would love to see that, and of course him breaking the fourth wall and everything. We'll see what happens.
Did I mess this up?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
No. That would be pretty spectacular.
Yes.
Him questioning stuff like, where's Robert Downey Jr.? Like, or whatever it is. It's like, whatever it is. Like, when does this movie take place? Is this before or after the snap? Whatever.
No, the blip.
The blip, whatever it is.
It is officially being referred to as the blip. Because they've referred to it as that in WandaVision, and now they have
in the Winter Soldier both. Yeah, I know.
So
Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
The official title for the gap is the blip.
Yeah. And I know I will say this, and I don't want to there is a really cool reference about that with Sam Wilson talking about his nephews. Like, hey, they were kids, and now they're both like little adults. Yeah. It's like, I missed all that time. Like, what, type stuff. So there's some really, like I said, this first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it was spectacular.
Yes.
I loved it. And, I suggest checking it out. Also, here's another checkout. I just watched. Dave hasn't watched it yet. I just watched a movie last night called Freaky. That is pretty spectacular. Where did my phone go? Because I want to tell you who's in this movie. It is. It's got Vince Vaughn,
who I love.
Yes, and
all the way back to Swingers. I know you don't like Swingers. I'm
not a big fan of Swingers.
I liked Swingers.
But this movie, it's called Freaky. It also stars. Hold on. Where is it? Here it is. I want to tell you what this actor's name is, because she's Catherine Newton. Okay, she's the other.
Why does that name sound familiar?
Okay, she's been in a lot of stuff. Okay, she was in Blockers. Yeah. She played. She's the blonde.
She's not the one that's replacing the girl who was playing Cassie in Ant-Man, is she?
No.
Okay.
No. She was. I mean, it's one of those things. She was in 3 Billboards.
Which that should not be happening. I'm actually pretty frustrated about that.
She was in 3 Billboards. I remember that. She's got a small role in that. I remember she. Okay, she was the oldest daughter on the first season of True Detective.
I've never seen that.
You never saw True Detective?
No.
You've got HBO Max now. You have to watch it.
Well, I'm in the middle of. I just started True Blood.
No. Look, I'm going to tell you, True Blood, the first season is excellent. The second season starts off good, gets bad in the middle, and then redeems itself at the end. And from 3 on, it's almost unwatchable.
Okay.
I'll tell you that right off the bat. True Detective.
I've also started over The Sopranos. I didn't get to watch The Sopranos all the way through. So, and you know me and my gangster movies.
I know, but I never could get. But what I'm saying, True Detective.
Okay.
Especially that first season of True Detective is something not to miss. I'll also tell you, since you have HBO Max now, watch The Leftovers. It's only 3 seasons. I want us to talk about that once you watch it.
The Leftovers?
The Leftovers.
All right,
I'm going to tell you this much about The Leftovers. The Leftovers, and don't let this color your perception of it, okay? It is a spiritual sequel to Lost. Hold on. Don't give me that look. And the reason why I say that is because the showrunner...
You know how I hate that show.
The showrunner from Lost also did this. But the thing is, and I can tell you, because you learned this in the very first couple minutes of The Leftovers. A, quote, rapture-like event happens, okay? Where basically, I think it's 2% of the world's populace disappears one day. Like, gone.
Okay.
And it's all about the fallout of what happens after that.
All right, I just added it to my
Dude, it is so
list.
good. I love... Justin Theroux is in this.
If I even get like hints of Lost... Like,
look, I'll go ahead and tell you, look,
if I have anything that looks like a smoke monster shows up, I will be canceling my HBO.
Oh, what's his name is in this? The Dr. Eccleston. He was one of the Doctor Who's. He's in it. He's excellent, dude. What's her name? Carrie Coons is in this. She is excellent.
Okay.
I mean, it is one of those things where it is. It's not an easy watch.
You probably should not have told me about it being a spiritual...
It's Damon Lindelof that was the showrunner for Lost, did this. And the only reason I say it's a spiritual sequel to it is because it deals with a lot of spirituality and religion the way that Lost did. And that... Just watch it, okay? Just watch it, okay? It's one of those things... This is what you need to keep in mind. Okay?
Okay.
Perfect Strangers. The TV show.
Yeah.
Just stay with it, okay?
All right.
I'm telling you, it's excellent. But like I said, True Detective and The Leftovers are both shows that when you watch them...
How many seasons of True Detective?
There are 3 seasons of True Detective, okay?
Okay.
Each season... is a different story with different actors. Now, they do connect the first and third seasons a little bit.
Okay.
And when I say that, like, there's references in the third season to stuff that happened in the first season. They're all different. They are heavy episodes. Like, this is not, hey, I got an hour to kill. I'm going to sit down and watch something, what. This is like, you sit down and you watch it, and you think about the episode for a while.
Okay. Well,
and The Leftovers is the same way. You sit down and you watch it, and you're like, I need to think about and process this for a little bit before I go on to the next one.
Both of them to my watch list. I will attempt to watch The Leftovers.
I'm telling you, it's
so
good.
That we can
it is so good.
Discuss it. And if I don't like it, expect to get the way you treated Godfather.
Look, hey, I should have never said the word Lost, okay? Because it's not, okay? It's one of those things that like I said, it is a spiritual sequel to it, kind of like, some other things are,
And I know I'm going to catch a lot of hate for hating on Lost.
Look, a lot of people didn't like it. That's fine. I loved it. It is still a show that I have not gotten over going off the air. I mean, it's like I have many times, and that show went off the air almost 11 years ago. I still have, I have said this, I have a Lost-shaped hole in my television watching.
How many seasons of that show?
6 seasons.
Well, that's about 5 too many.
And it's one of those things where I have this hole in my television watching that is Lost-shaped that I've never been able to successfully fill, but The Leftovers came really close to it. So, again,
I'll watch it.
Everybody has different tastes.
We'll talk about it.
But The Leftovers, again, is one of those. It's based on a book called The Leftovers. The first season was basically them doing and I think it's only like 8 episodes a season or something. It's one of those things that they're not long seasons, you know, they're HBO seasons, you know.
Okay.
And it's one of those things where, like, believe me, they jam a lot into those episodes. So it was one of those things that they did that first season, and really that was all of the story that they had.
Yeah.
But the writer came on as a consultant for where they could go with the next season. And I think that the second season is on par with the first season, like pretty close. Like they're right there. The third season is good. It's a great, especially the way it ends is like, no, this is perfect for this show. Okay. Yeah. It's not quite as good as 1 and 2, but it's still up there, you know, because the thing is because it just they're almost 3 different stories, and a lot of it they're the same characters going through all of it, and it's so good.
I just got through finishing the latest season of Westworld. Sorry,
what, is that 4?
3.
Didn't 3 come out last year? Have they done another one yet? I don't know. I watched the first 2 seasons of it. I haven't gotten around to the third one yet because
I like the third
because
one.
The reason why I haven't gotten to the third one yet is because I didn't have HBO for while it was on, which I have it now because of my and I just haven't gone back and watched. I loved it.
And the reason I said Deadwood is because I'm actually thinking about going back and rewatching Deadwood.
I've tried.
It
just doesn't
I
do
like
it for
Deadwood.
Me. So it's I like the cowboy thing, but it kind of I think it's the language, just the fact that it's so over the top with the language that I'm like, all right, you know, so that's just me, you know, again. And I have believe me, you've listened to this, you've heard me cuss enough, but it's one of those, I have no like aversion to that kind of stuff, but it just kind of seems a little over the top of like,
I wouldn't disagree.
They really, they could have pulled some of this back. This is almost like, hey, we can do this, so we're going to do it. You know, it's have you watched Allen versus Pharaoh?
No.
You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Matter of fact, the last episode just aired. It's a 4-part documentary about the Woody Allen Mia Farrow, like when all that happened almost 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that like Mia Farrow is interviewed, Dylan Farrow is interviewed, Rowan Farrow. I mean, like they interview everybody except for Woody Allen, and Sun Yi would not come on, and one of their other kids wouldn't come on and do anything. But it's really one of those things where it's like, if you remember when that case happened, you know, when they split, and then there was the accusation of the sexual abuse of Dylan.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that they go into the case, and like they even interview like the New Jersey district attorney that didn't go to trial with it, and he's like, look, there was probable cause to take this to trial, but I did not want to put a 7-year-old girl on the stand and have her have to go through all the scrutiny that was going on. And it's one of those things that like you should have, because Woody Allen is a pedophile. I mean, and they go into it stuff on there of like, he had multiple relationships with teenage girls when he was much older than them type stuff, and it's really good. You know, if you like Woody Allen, you won't like it. If you're like me and you never really liked Woody Allen to begin with, then you'll like it. 4 episodes, it's really good. I also watched the Tiger Woods documentary.
That I haven't watched.
It's pretty good. It's about 3 hours long. It's split up into 2. Let me tell you this much, okay? You know who Rachel Uchitel is? She was not the she wasn't the first woman to come out and say that she had an affair with him,
but she was one of the multiple.
She's probably the biggest profiled because she was kind of she was on some reality shows or whatever, prior to all that and everything. So she's kind of going, dude, she looks so bad in this thing. Like, she comes in, the first time she comes in and sits down, man, way too much lip filler and plastic surgery done, and it's just like, oh man, you used to be really and now you're not.
Now the thing that I am enjoying is I'm in the middle of the DC Harlequin with Kaylee Cuoco voicing Harley.
I tried watching the I know we're just basically going through HBO Max here. I tried watching The Flight Attendant.
No, I'm not even interested.
I watched the first episode. I'm like, okay. Second episode, I started into it, and they did a thing that I really hate in television shows like that.
Yeah.
Where they have a dead character that talks to the main character.
Oh, yeah.
I hate when they do that kind of stuff. And I was like, I'm out. This is,
I saw the previews for that, and I'm like, I'm not even interested.
I've heard that it's good, but it's one of those things, like, again, it's one of those, like, I hate when they do this kind of stuff, where it's like, oh, now she's thinking about, what happened, and then all of a sudden the dead character is like talking to her and blah blah blah. It's like, no, this is
nope. Click next.
Yep, exactly. So and there's and that's the whole thing,
which is basically what everybody's done to us on the podcast at this point. So.
Probably. Anyway, so guys, thank you for joining us and indulging our trip down memory lane, an old videotape,
and talking about what we're watching on HBO Max right now.
The thing too is, we do like to give you guys something to maybe ponder or watch, like suggestions for stuff, and that's kind of what we're doing here. But anyways, if you have any suggestions for us, please hit us up on Instagram.
Don't forget about
Facebook.
Your homework and telling us what band Slaughter came out of.
Yes.
So let us know.
And we will be back with some more non-mysterious episodes here before long. And we thank you for joining us. I am Alan Smith.
I'm the other guy, Big Dave.
Make sure all of our links, go check all of our links in in our whatever that I can't even think.
Social media.
Yeah, they're in the show
notes.
In the show notes. So, anyways, again, I'm Alan Smith.
I'm the other guy. Just turn it off already.
All right, we'll see you.
Bye.